begin this lesson with a little story. Now you may remember or have been told that I am a good cook, but that in my house I have been banned from making cookies. They just never turn out. But that's not what this story is about. This story is about another person in my house, a young man who shall remain nameless, who was also banned from making cookies because one day he wanted to make some cookies for a Father's Day present for his father. But we didn't have quite enough ingredients, and so he needed to cut the recipe in half. So I, being the mathematician that I am, from the other room was helping him with his measurement calculations. You know, what's half of 3/4 cup and those kinds of things. Well, then he comes to me and he says, what's the remedy for too much salt in cookie dough? And you can imagine he put in, instead of a teaspoon of salt, he put in a full cup of salt. Well, needless to say, that was disgusting. And so this boy was banned from making cookies for quite some time. Now, the moral of the story is, of course, that the units are as important as the numbers. So we're going to look at units and unit conversion in particular. And here are some basic principles to understand. These are basic arithmetic principles. The first one is when we're dividing two equivalent quantities, the quotient is always 1. So for example, if I'm taking 3 and dividing by 3, 3 divided by itself is 1. And any number, any value divided by itself, so 17,704, if we divide it by itself, don't even need to get a calculator out, that is equal to 1. That's the first basic principle. The second one is that when we multiply a quantity by the value 1, it doesn't change the quantity. If I start with 5 and I multiply by 1, my answer is going to be 5. Just the same thing I started with. If I start with 17,704 multiplied by 1, well, the answer is pretty clear. It's 17,704. And so these two properties are used actually to convert units, but notice I haven't used any units yet. And so we're going to look at what are called conversion factors. And conversion factors are fractions that are equivalent to 1, and they're used to change the units of a quantity, but they don't change the amount or the value of the quantity. Now here's an example of a unit conversion factor. Let's say that we were told that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. And that actually is true. 1 inch and 2.54 centimeters are exactly the same length. Well, because those are equal, if I make a fraction out of them, 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters, 1 inch and 2.54 centimeters are exactly the same quantity, so they're equivalent, then that is equal to 1, according to our first property up here. Now we could also switch that around, so we could look at that a little bit differently. What if we put 2.54 centimeters and divided that by 1 inch? Again, because these are exactly the same quantity, then that quotient is equal to 1. And so these are two examples of what we call conversion factors. These two fractions that are equivalent to 1 are going to be used to change the units of a quantity for us. Now, it's important to understand that those two fractions are only equivalent to 1 because I included the units. If I said 1 divided by 2.54, well, that's not equal to 1. It's the units that make those equivalent quantities. So let's see how this is done in an example. In this example, we're going to convert 55 centimeters to inches. This is how we do it. We start by writing down the 55 centimeters that we have. And then I'm going to multiply that by something. So leave some space, but let's make a note over here of what we want that to turn into. We want this to equal inches. So I want to note my space. I'm going to put my answer right there. Now right here is where I put my unit conversion factor. This is a fraction that I've made that is going to allow me to cancel the centimeters and turn them into inches. So it's going to be, if we look back here, it's going to be one of these two unit conversion factors that I've got circled. But which one do I pick? How do I decide? Well, let me tell you. We build this fraction and we look at the unit that we have. The unit we have, we need to cancel it out. And so in order to cancel centimeters, I need to put centimeters down in the denominator for that canceling to happen. And therefore, I'm going to put inches in the top. Now, it was 1 inch equivalent to 2.54 centimeters. So let me fill in the numbers. And then I get to apply the canceling of centimeters from the top with centimeters from the bottom. Cancel out, leaving me inches. And I'm going to circle my unit that I have. So this is inches. So how do I figure it out? Well, according to my numbers, I'm going to take 55 times by 1 from the top, timesing it straight across, and dividing it by 2.54. Well, let me grab a calculator. So it's 55 times 1. I'm not going to waste my time doing that. It's just really 55 divided by 2.54. So it's about 21.65 inches. And that's how it's done. The biggest decision to make is where to put the units you want to cancel. If they're in the top to start, which they usually are, then you're going to put them down in the bottom to cancel them. Here's another example, and this is a real-life example. I went with my family to Mexico a couple of years ago, and we had to stop to buy some extra sunscreen in Puerto Vallarta. And so let me tell you where the most expensive sunscreen is. It's at the Walmart in Puerto Vallarta. We bought this same sunscreen in Washington just before we left for $2.50 a bottle. Well, when we got off the boat and went in, this is what we saw. The sunscreen cost 95 pesos, and then 1 peso was equivalent to 0.0757 American dollars. So just about 8 cents. Let's figure out how much I paid for that sunscreen. Again, we're going to start with the 95 pesos that we have. Leave some space, and I'm going to let that equal how many American dollars. So dollars is the unit I want. Let me build a conversion factor. And I'm going to do that by putting in the bottom pesos so that I can get them to cancel. And I would want my dollars in the top because that's the unit I want. So filling in numbers, it was 1 peso, so the 1 goes down here, is equivalent to 0.0757 American dollars. All right, then we do the math. Now the units of pesos cancel out, and that leaves me just dollars for my unit, exactly what I want for my answer. So in this case, I multiply straight across. I get 95, times it by the 0.0757, and then I'm going to divide by whatever's on the bottom, which is just a 1. So that's not going to do a whole lot. Let me grab a calculator and punch that in. So 95 times 0.757 multiplied together is about 719. That is expensive sunscreen. All right, now it's going to be pretty clear pretty fast that there's some equivalents that you're going to need to know. These are things that you should know. There will be some given to you, but these are ones that you need to have memorized. You will be expected to know these off the top of your head. So I want you to pause the video right now and fill in as many blanks as you can. Now, I hope you already know a bunch of these. There's only a few you need to memorize. Pause the video, fill it out, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, let's check them off. Make a mark on any that you need to memorize. 1 mile, that's 5,280 feet. 1 yard, that's just 3 feet. And 1 foot is 12 inches. For mass, 16 ounces is a pound, and 2,000 pounds is 1 ton. Time, I hope you had all these right. This is 60 seconds makes a minute. 60 minutes, of course, makes an hour. 24 hours is a day. 7 days is a week. 365 days in a year, unless you're being really precise, and then you might want to say that's 365.25 because we do have leap years. For a year, or for a decade, you get 10 years, and if you have 100 years total, that's 1 century. Okay, these are a little bit trickier for some people, and I don't know why, because this is what you use when you cook all the time. Maybe you need to make dinner more often. 8 fluid ounces makes 1 cup. 2 cups makes 1 pint, 2 pints makes 1 quart, and 4 quarts altogether makes 1 gallon. Again, these need to be memorized, so pat yourself on the back for all the ones you got right and make a little note over in your questions part of which ones you need to study and quiz yourself. All right, just some final examples. We're going to do a little more conversion using a conversion factor. 5 days is how many hours? So 5 days, let me just jot that down. We want to convert the days into hours. Alrighty, so what do we know? Well, we know that 1 day is equivalent to 24 hours, and so we can build a conversion factor. Now ask yourself, where do we want to put the days so that we can get them to cancel here? Of course, they're going to have to go down in the bottom. That means hours goes up in the top. So now fill in your numbers that 1 day and 24 hours are equivalent. Do the canceling. The units of days cancel, one from the top, one from the bottom, leaving me hours. And so this calculation is just going to be 5 times by 24. Any numbers across the top just multiply together. So grab a calculator for that. And 5 times 24 is giving me 120. So we've got 120 hours for 5 days. Okay, this example, you're drinking a 20-ounce soda. How many cups of soda is that? So let's write down what we know. We've got 20 ounces. And how many cups? We're going to turn it into cups. And I left some room here for the conversion factor. If you need to look back at your chart, if you don't know, take a look back. But I know that 8 ounces, specifically fluid ounces, this is soda, is equal to 1 cup. So let me build my conversion factor. This is my fraction. Ounces I want to cancel, so I'm going to put ounces down on the bottom. And then I want to turn them into cups. So cups are going to come up here. Filling in my numbers, it's 8 ounces equal to 1 cup. And then canceling the units of ounces, leaving me cups in the top here. So this is where, as I look at these numbers, it looks like I'm multiplying 20 by 1, but I'm dividing by 8. Remember that any number across the top you multiply, any number on the bottom you divide by that. Now I'm going to not take the time to multiply by 1. That's ridiculous. So let's just take 20 divided by 8 and grab our answer. 2.5. Okay, so there's my final answer, 2.5 cups. And that's how you use conversion factors. We'll take this one step at a time. This is the easy stuff. We'll get it a little bit tougher as we go along, but have fun with this.